And if they can see that we are not good enough, we're not qualified, they would not support us. The Air Force was a big supporter of this project. We had to get a lot of equipment from the Air Force.
The team and its decision makers closely scrutinized Felix in his attempt to master the altitude chamber test, concerned that he might have to endure hours of discomfort from the faceplate, and with only hours to go, Felix demands a kill switch. Tensions rise.
On a flight test program, you don't change things the night before, and we tried to express that. But Felix wanted a shut-off switch for the visor heating. He wanted to be able to turn it off if he had to. And it's like, we're in Texas, it's, in late afternoon. We went to the local electronics store, that's on the corner, and bought this switch.
Test day 2. The next simulated ascent into the stratosphere brings a full program of tasks. While Brooks is a simulation, the extreme cold and near vacuum are real, posing a true danger to life. This is no place for complications. But then it happens. Halfway through the process, the new switch breaks off.
Visor heater is not working. I cannot read numbers anymore right now. So I have to keep this little tube inside because otherwise I'm getting up and I don't see in here.
Turn the switch off on the chest pack.
I cannot reach that switch anymore, Joe, because it fell into the chest pack.
We'll talk about it.
You guys are so up.
We'll talk about it.
Check this out.
We've got a mil-spec switch. We've got a mil-spec switch.
You guys are too stupid to put a switch on a f***ing chest pack.
I don't understand what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is
take
always
it off and see what happens.
This is always the answer
somehow.
that I get from you guys. Yeah? 2 flights, 2 mission aborts because of a chest pack.
I don't understand it. We'll see what happened to it.
It's not funny. Yeah?
It's not meant to be funny.
Well,
But that's why we said we didn't want to put a switch in there because it's another fault. So
Well, let's see what
we've
happens.
got a solution.
Let's see
You
what
guys,
happens to the switch.
stop selling me excuses. If you cannot put the switch on the chest pack, that false nodding has nothing to do with science. Has nothing to do with failures, because putting a switch on a chest pack is not a big deal.
Okay,
got
let's
that?
go in the room. Let's go in the room. We actually managed to, in the meantime, before the next test, find an aircraft switch that we confiscated off of a piece of equipment to put in place. That was something that we felt reliable on, that you could yank and pull and tug.
Attaboy, you're a strong mother. Okay, when you're ready.
The last day of testing and all is operational. After much waiting and uncertainty, the necessary approvals are finally granted. But the joy is in stark contrast to the emotional gap between Felix and his team. The pressure chamber test has exposed a mutual lack of trust. Despite the rift, the team must follow its call to action. The first real ascent into the stratosphere will require intense preparation.
We had checklists that were several pages long, and we had gone over this at SAGE, we had gone over it in the chambers and done it over and over till it was just really, second nature.
It was like an orchestra. We had our My Master Countdown list. Art Thompson had a list that had to incorporate all the cinema folks, all the flight line folks, and I have my crew chief's checklist out on the launch pad, plus we had my electronics technician, and we had to get all of these meshed together.
I designed the emergency procedures with Felix. I designed the egress procedures with Felix. I designed the flight profile with Felix. That responsibility was heavy on my shoulders because I was responsible for his life as far as I was concerned.
But the mission will depend on more than checklists. Even if Felix achieves his ascent, he will still need to perform a perfect jump. The Red Bull Stratos team coins the term bunny hop, a move that must be trained to perfection.
There was a big thing about when Felix steps off the step, because you're in a vacuum, you don't have any dynamic force, any atmospheric pressure to stop you from spinning. So anything you put into it, the slightest little left or right or movement one way or the other, will go into a continuing spin. It'll accelerate up.
Before Felix can attempt his ascent into the stratosphere, 2 unmanned tests must be carried out at the launch site of Roswell, New Mexico. Here, the capsule, balloon, command procedures, and communication channels will be closely assessed. To mimic a manned flight, a Felix dummy is launched into the stratosphere.
It was affectionately nicknamed Felix Baumgartner.
It had built into it the GPS unit and the antenna system and the recording system and the transmitting system.
The team and equipment are ready. Still, in this unique mission, not everything can be planned. It remains a risky experiment.
There was one launch where the helium did not arrive until about 2 hours before we were going to inflate. We had which this is unheard of, but we had a vendor who had a truck and trailer and no helium, and then we had another vendor who had a helium and no trailer. We were biting our nails the whole time because we were going to launch and had no helium.
Not only is the stratospheric balloon dependent on helium, but its enormous surface is vulnerable to wind. This means the weather will have the final say in the timing of the launch. For 3 days, adverse conditions cause delays. The team maintains vigilance regarding the weather. As soon as there is a window, full concentration is required. Scientifically, the launch of a structure this size, when manned, will represent uncharted territory. In the end, the wind picks up and the launch window closes. The team cannot complete the preparations in time.
Is to get off the ground by 7. You got to make sure that all the gear and everything's ready.
The balloon is destroyed. The valuable helium escapes. A disappointing setback. The Red Bull Stratos balloon is made of transparent polyethylene film to keep weight to a minimum. Measuring 0.008 inches thick, it's 10 times thinner than an ordinary plastic bag. A gust of wind or a weak point in the balloon could lead to its collapse. The balloon alone weighs as much as a mid-sized sedan. At 40 acres, the surface of the shell would cover 23 soccer fields, making it 3 times larger than any manned balloon in history. The ground crew cannot relax after the aborted attempt. The weather delays leave them struggling with sleep deprivation and exhaustion.
Being out all night on the runway and then saying, no, it's not going to work today. The conditions aren't right. Go back to the room, get some sleep. We'll start all over again midnight. I think your focus and your attention is driven minute by minute by minute. It's very short range.
It ended up that the team had to work a lot, and they were all exhausted, and you go through a week where your days become nights and nights become days.
At 11 p.m., the Red Bull Stratos team start double and triple checking equipment prior to sunrise. 12 to 16 hours later, their shift ends. And several hours after that, the hard-working team are back at it. Again, the fate of the project is weather-dependent. The team finds itself relying on one man, meteorologist Don Day.
Everybody realized that they have to make sure they're on schedule, make sure they're on time, and make sure we hit our mark. And a lot of people realize that this is going to be much more difficult than they once thought.
One key moment is the very first time when that capsule takes off. And I think everyone felt the same way. Everyone was so fired up and so excited because you're sitting there and you can see those pictures. To me, this was one of the very, very first moments when I finally realized that soon it's me sitting in that capsule.
The unmanned tests are successful, but push the team to the breaking point. The exertions take their toll on Art.
All of a sudden, he started having chest pains, and we thought he was having a heart attack. So I rushed him over to our doctors. He went through all these tests, and they said, nope, you're not having a heart attack. It's just stress. Are you under a lot of stress? And it's like, oh, no.
Luke Akins brings better news from back home. His wife, Monica, has given birth to a son.
My wife got pregnant. We had a baby. 4 days after my son was born, I had to leave to go to Unmanned 2 in Roswell, New Mexico. The whole time I had a camera at home that I could control on my phone. And I'd be watching my little son, laying on the floor, doing his thing.
Luke was gone, and I was like, what was I thinking? This is a lot harder, having a first child and stuff. So it was really hard at times.
March 13th, 2012, the first manned test is scheduled. After exhaustive preparations, Felix is inside the capsule. The go for the launch could come at any time, and that's when a stunning malfunction takes place.
You're good, Felix.
The team is in shock. Just seconds later, and Felix would have faced mortal danger. If the balloon fails in the moments after its release, no rescue is possible.
The first 3,000 feet, to me, is the most dangerous part of the whole skydive. It's too low for him to successfully get out and open his own parachute. It's too high for surviving if you have to jump out, right? And it's also too low for the parachute to open to work to retard the descent of the capsule.
The tear in the balloon was caused by a manufacturing defect. The team feels that it would not be safe to attempt a manned launch using the same brand. For the next launch, another supplier will have to be found.
Yes, we do have another launch.
Copy, thank you.
Two days later, once again, the mission commands the team's complete focus. The first manned test is a pivotal milestone. Felix emerges as a true leader in this tense situation.
The day Felix showed up in Roswell, totally ready to do it, to do his first jump, everybody realized, okay, this is gonna happen.
There was just this sense of, wow, we might launch Felix today.
I was shocked at how much Felix was focused.
It was really hard to watch all that live. I didn't want to talk and was very focused on Felix. I just wanted everything to go well.
Mike Todd's job is to preserve a sense of calm. In a launch ritual, Mike helps Felix into his suit and prepares him mentally for the boundaries he is about to push.
My job here is to get him in that suit, make sure that the integrity of the suit is good, and also to keep him as calm as possible, because he has a lot of things going through his mind at that point.
You do not know what to expect because obviously you have never done it before. And I also think this was the most stressful moment for the team as well, because now they launch human cargo into space. And this is the first time that these guys were launching human cargo. So you could tell the heat was on that day.
The first manned launch is successful. The first test takes Felix into dangerous territory. At 40,000 feet, the external oxygen is low, but Felix has had a steady supply of pure oxygen since before the launch. Above 62,000 feet, though, the atmosphere becomes extremely hostile. Without protection, body fluids would boil due to low air pressure. To survive in the capsule, Felix must monitor its artificial environment by balancing oxygen and nitrogen in the air. Too much oxygen and the smallest spark could cause a deadly fire.